Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. And it's Monday night. Me and Mark are here asking the same question we do every Monday. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. The VAR was absolutely shite and the screen does not work clearly from the weekend, mates. How are you doing?
I think it's referees again and VAR do not work this weekend. It's not been another good one, has it? Let's face it, across the league. So
honestly, mate, I'm starting to think that Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles could do a better job than Stokely Park, because I don't know what they're watching. They must be watching Netflix or something. They're not watching the fucking match, that's for sure, because the decisions they're getting wrong.
Reruns of Buffy the Vampire Slayer or something like that.
Well, to be fair, you can't go wrong with a bit of Buffy, in all fairness, mate. You really can't go wrong. 90s flashback there. I'm sure there'll be plenty in the comments. I know Ash is in the comments. I'm sure he liked a bit of Buffy back in the 90s. But as we said, guys, we're live tonight, so jump in the comments as always. It really helps the show flow, especially the What's Going On show, because it's all about the crack. And if you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. We're so close to 1900. We're on 1898. So if you're new, please click the button. We need 2 more to get to 1900. And if you just tell somebody to subscribe, do that and get us a 1900. If we can get on 1900 while we're live, that'd be absolutely amazing. And then it's 1 more 100 to get to that 2000 mark, which would be absolutely buzzing to get to. Because as we keep saying, we are younger than the takeover. So if we get 2000 subs in less than a year, it's absolutely phenomenal. We've already got a few guys in the comments already tonight. Ash is in the house. BT, massive shout out to BT as well. BT jumped on at 20-7, I think, mate. So the TV must have been really shite tonight, BT, but we'll love having you in the comments, mate. Always good to see you. Jimmy's in the comments too, as is Stu. So let's get stuck in then, Mark. So the first place to start, there's no other place to start, really. We've got a point at the weekend, but Christ on a bike, there was penalty shouts left, right, and centre, and not one penalty was given, mate. Just take us through some of these horrendous decisions that went the weekend. For both sides, in all fairness, mate, it wasn't just us, was it?
Do you know, I think on another day you possibly could have 4 if they looked at. I think clearly there were 2 that should have been given, 1 either side. I think the other 2 are debatable. We started off with Callum Wilson's, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Bursting through 2 defenders, knocking the ball through, and he's clearly taken out. There's an argument to say, would he have made the ball? But I don't think that's relevant. I think the action from the Man U defender is across Callum Wilson. It clearly takes him out. And if you do that at any other place in the field, it's a foul. So why is that not looked at? That made no sense to me whatsoever. It was followed up, wasn't it, by the shirt pull? And I think they were commenting about the shirt pull.
Yeah, that's a bit soft for me, that one. That's a bit soft for me. If you're going to give that, you're going to end up giving 4 pens every game.
Let's put it in sort of context with, let's go back to the Longstaff one against Wolves. That was a clear penalty. This one's not. Yeah. If you can sort of see, and actually I've picked the wrong image there, to be fair, because I think the other one's better, and you can see both of them at it. So you can't give it a foul one way when it's going on the other. So I'm okay with that one not being given. You had, where was it, the Sancho one?
Yeah, that's a pen for me. I'm sorry, that's a pen for me.
That's as clear a penalty as. I mean, that reminds me.
You can see him kicking his standing leg there. Really, he's wiped them out completely there, Longstaff. He's very lucky to get away with that, in my opinion, mate.
Do you know, it reminds me of the one against Leeds at St James's Park. Was it last season? And I'm trying to remember. Was it Willock? Or was it? Oh no, was it earlier on? Was it Almiron? Someone will remind me.
Might have been Miggy actually. I think it was Miggy. Did the ref not accuse Miggy of diving or something?
Possibly. I'm sure
let us know in the comments if anyone remembers. Jump in the comments and let us know. I'm sure it might have been Miggy, mate. I think it might have been, right?
But I'm sorry. Yeah, I've seen comments about where I'm not sure whether there was a touch. That's a penalty. I'm sorry, but as good a game as Longstaff had, that's a bit of an error.
Ash has got a point. Ash has got a point. Yeah, he didn't do himself any favours by doing a Tom Daly, did he really? So
do you know what? It's probably an element of that, and the referee's seen that, and sort of there's a doubt there because of the way that he has acted. But there is contact. He has got his leg right across him, and it is a foul. And then the final one was the Trippier and Ronaldo one. Again, it's one of those where I think if it's given for you, you go, yeah, that's clear. He does make contact. He's not near the ball. It does affect the shot. if it gets given against you, you're screaming murder because it would be soft. So, I mean, on another day, could you have had 4 penalties in one game? I think they all even each other out. But it was just, I think it was the fact that I think the Wilson one wasn't checked. The play just carried on. I'm not sure, was there even a check done on it?
I think they said they did check it, which is the most
did
worrying
they?
part.
Right, okay.
I was watching, I think the Sky Sports have the ref watch on, don't they? And they had Dermot Gallagher come on. And Dermot Gallagher was on with Danny Mills and is it Kelly Smith? Do I remember the short-haired ex-female footballer?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, so she was on with him, and they both said, I'm sorry, that's a pen. If that's not a clear-cut pen, that you go to VAR, and VAR should actually say to the referee, I think you need to check that. And the ref's got to go to the screen and look at that, and he can see Varane extending his knee out to clip Callum Wilson's knee as he's tucking in between two players. Now, I know what you were saying. He may not have caught it, right, because there was a covering defender. But Wilson's got pace. Wilson could have got to that ball. You can't know for certainty that Wilson wouldn't get to that ball. That warrants a check to me. That is a stonewall penalty. I don't understand what VAR's doing, Mark. If it's not there to tell the ref, you need to go check that. That could be deemed as a penalty. I don't understand. What was it there for?
I think PK said in our chat, didn't he, that he wasn't sure that Wilson had maybe knocked the ball too far and then was looking for it, but I don't think there was too much of that because the ball wasn't far enough ahead for him to have lost control completely of it.
No,
it was
I think you would have got to it.
Ball that he played through the middle of the two defenders with the idea that he was bursting through that gap.
Yeah.
So it's then Varane's action that then take him out. There's no other reason to go to ground at that point because there's that point in which Wilson's got enough pace to burst that gap and got to the ball first. So. Yeah, that one's clear. The Sandro one is clear, and again,
I think that's
just
clear.
What are they?
Yeah, absolutely.
It just.
Yeah. I mean, there was Ash has got a point there about checking the defenders is obviously the red card, but I think you might be moving on to our next section there, mate, which I've just banged in this little tagline as well for this, which is what the fuck, Ronaldo. That was probably the other big talking point of the game, really, wasn't it? That Ronaldo decided to just make the rules up as he goes along, Mark, didn't he? Like, what the fuck was he playing at?
Well, there's a point in which as Shaw goes to just tap the ball towards Pope for the free kick, the referee does appear to blow his whistle, but he blows it as Shaw plays the ball. So Shaw's action of going to play the ball is being done before the whistle's played. Now, obviously, Ronaldo's gone, I've heard the whistle, he's hit the ball's live. But if you go back and review it, the referee still stood there with his arm in the air. Clearly indicates that the ball is not live. That arm comes down the second that ball is played because it's an indirect free kick. It's then his arm will stay up there until the ball is live. So at this point, as Ronaldo's just about to take the ball off Nick Pope, that ball's not live. So as soon as he takes it off him, and if you go back and listen, there's a video of somebody in the crowd that records this, and they're saying, "Oh, well, he's blown the whistle, the ball's live." If you watch the TV coverage, you can hear the referee's whistle as Ronaldo takes the ball off him to blow the play dead. So even if there was any doubt, the referee's whistle had happened before he then plays the ball into the net, and then this happens.
I mean, that was a fucking... Honestly, that pissed me right off watching that with these lot, mate. Disgusting.
This whole thing, and if you remember, we looked something very similar in the Arsenal game last season when there were about 9 Arsenal players all surrounded the referee. At that point, every one of those players should get booked. Now, he booked Ronaldo because of something he said. Every one of those players should get booked. The only player that should approach the referee in any regard should be the captain. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but that harks back to the Fergie days of Manchester United, where you had the likes of Keane.
He was terrible at it.
All on top of the referee, screaming at him. And in a weekend of it, we've seen other ones, and I know we're going to come to a certain character later on.
Certain Turkish teeth bastard that we're going to stuck into in a minute, mate. Yeah, but
it's on the rise again. This and it has to stop because this is just going to end up with, you see it in the grassroots, because again, people pick up on it as much as some will say no, it doesn't. The kids, the parents as well, pick up on the fact that they're allowed to approach the referee like this, and all of a sudden something goes wrong. So the FA have to stamp this out, and if it's a case of, if that happens, you book every single player, and it'll be a mess for the first week. But as soon as it happens once, everyone will stop. Because if he books all 9 players there,
mate.
Yeah. If he books all 9 players there, no other team does it.
No.
Because they've learned the lesson instantly, and it'd be a case where we're not going to take the hit of having so many yellow cards at once. And that has to be a hefty fine for Manchester United. And they've got form. They did it a few years ago, and it was exactly the same. And I think they got fined something like 200 grand.
Remember the famous pizza one with Arsenal when Van Nistelrooy missed the pen, and the way the Arsenal players behaved. Then, I mean, that was kind of the boiling point, as you said. It was slowly getting worse and worse week after week, certainly with those big teams that were going for the titles. And then that was when it blew out of proportion. And that was a step too far. And then the FA did come in and do something about that. But I've seen some people commenting saying that, this is good. I like this. It's, you got to be a shit house. You got to be in the referee's face and all that. To an extent, I agree with that, but that's too far. That's bullying tactics. That's intimidation. That's threatening behaviour. And fair play to the referee for taking no shit from them. He just walked away. He wasn't interested in it. But like you said, he should have just went yellow card, yellow card, yellow card, and they all would have fucking scattered away like ants at a picnic. They would have disappeared.
What did they expect him to do? Change the decision?
Ronaldo. Yeah, that's a goal. That.
The laws are clear. Referee's decision's final at the end of the day. Obviously, VAR is an exception to that to a point. But if the referee in that regard, there's no VAR decision in that regard. The whistle's blown again, ball's dead. There is no way to change that decision. So that to me, it has to it has to end up in bookings. It has to end up in sanction on the club, whether that's a fine or whatever. Because that just can't continue to happen.
I totally agree. Just another little talk on Ronaldo there. Obviously, he did that. He was pretty poor, I thought, at the weekend. He certainly doesn't look like the Ronaldo of old. I don't think he fits into that Manchester United team, which is what I said in the post-match review. He was pretty much in Botman's pocket, I think, for most of the game. But when he come off, again, it was the bad side of Ronaldo. He comes off and he's shaking his head in disgust. He's almost like you try to take the king off his throne or something like that. And he comes off and he barely shakes Rashford's hands. He barely shakes Ten Hag's hand. He sits on the bench and shakes his head repeatedly. Ironically enough, I think if the ball falls to Ronaldo for Rashford's header, we probably lose that game 1-0 if Ronaldo's on the pitch. Because fucking hell, that was close, right? But
the two, wasn't it? It was
the free kick and the header.
And then the header from Rashford, you're waiting for the net to bulge at that, and how he misses it is beyond me. But
it's his attitude in everything that's wrong. I said this in the post-match review. Shout out to PK. This is exactly what PK means when he says no dickheads policy. That's a dickhead right there. You don't want a guy like that in your team. If you're not playing that well and you haven't really had a kick and you've been marked out of the game by the best defender that's ever played the game, and he's only 22 years old. If that's the way you're playing, you can't shake your head in disgust when you come off the pitch. Like, just put your head down, shake Rashford's hand, say, "Go on, Marcus, win us the game." Show a bit of humility, man. He is just such an egomaniac. It's so vile, really. Like, and you see Mbappe. Mbappe is going the same way as him. He's acting the same way. There's a certain humility, I think, in the way that Messi acts and plays the game. Messi is arguably, to a lot of people, the best footballer that's ever lived, right? But he's humble with it. He's not arrogant with it. He's not a dickhead with it. He knows he's class. He knows he's a good player, right? But he doesn't shake his head in disgust when he's subbed off. He just goes off. You know what I mean? And Ronaldo, for all of the skill Ronaldo has and everything he's done in his career, you do something like that, you look like a dick, don't you, really, mate?
Yeah, you absolutely do. Like you say, it's about humility at the end of the day. You've got to stay grounded to a point, and I know he's such an astronomical star that's always going to be ridiculously difficult. But there's a point now where he's lost a couple of steps, he's not the player he was, and he's just. I think you see. I think a lot of that frustration is the fact that he's not quite right. Whether he's not at the level that he expects himself to be.
Possibly, as Ash says there, he thinks he's still in his prime, but he's 195 years old.
Tell you what, I'd still like to be able to play like him. Christ almighty.
I tell you what, I wouldn't mind a six-pack. I got 195 years old. Jesus Christ. Just a comment there as well, actually, from Trinster. New name in the comments. How you doing, mate? I hope you click that like and subscribe button. Get us over that 1900. But he says yellow cards should come with a 10-minute sin bin like rugby union. Totally agree. Immediate impact. With Bruno and Miggy running at you. That'd be brilliant. We would have battered them. Absolutely battered them. But yeah, I mean, I think the game as a whole, mate, we are doing Evermore on Thursday this week, everybody. So we're going to cover both the games, really. But I think just maybe our final take on the match, Mark, before we talk about how class we are as a defensive unit. I think that we went there with no fear. We showed that we belong in a game like that we're not going to just go and make up the numbers. We're going to go and take it to them, which is exactly what Eddie Howe said. I was so proud of the lads because, especially as we talked about previously coming on, we did it without Maxi and Isak. These are arguably two of our best players, and to play like that, Mark, I think, and to leave with a hard-fought draw and probably be a bit pissed off we didn't get more. You've got to give it up to the lads, haven't you?
Yeah, you do. I mean, look, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't pretty at times, but there was enough attacking intent from the side. Even when you consider, you maybe are missing a couple, they kept things tight. It wasn't ridiculously open. I think Newcastle in the end had about 9 shots, but both sides had 2 on target. So it wasn't a totally open game, but there were chances there. And I mean, Joe Linton's had 2 headers.
He's got to get one of them. He's got to get one of them in. The rebound.
The first one, that's it. I think the first one, you can't really have too much of a got him. Excuse the noise in the background. The cat's just decided to go crazy.
In case people don't know, Mark lives in a zoo. Mark has about 16 animals in the background of his recording here. So sometimes the little microphone goes on mute, and I've got to fill space because it's either a cat, a dog, a goat, a chicken, a camel, a snake, or whatever the animal that he has in the background there. So that's
a couple of emus, panther,
emus, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah.
You've lost your train of thought, mate.
Totally lost my train of thought. It was Joe Linton's headers.
Yes.
Yeah, so the first one, it's a sort of a snap header from a free kick. It hits the bar, doesn't it? And it comes back out. He has to do better. He's got to hit the target. He's got pretty much an open goal to get it, into, and he
rushes those things
a couple of
too
inches
much.
Out the way.
Yeah, but he rushes those things. Like if that's Bruno, that's a goal. In my opinion, I really think that's a goal. If that falls to Bruno's a bit calmer in those moments. I think that goes in the back of the net. Now, I love Joe. I thought he was class at the weekend, but he just has them rush of blood to the head moments where he's like, "Oh, I need to header it, fuck," He just panics a bit. He had time. He could have headed it the other side. He could have headed it down, whatever. But he just rushes and goes bang and hits the post. And I mean, either side that way, either side, then it's in the back of the net. But I've got to put this comment from Stu as well because I could not agree with this comment more. I was looking on Twitter before. I think it was Kendall on Twitter. Actually, she's great on Twitter. If you don't follow her, get a follow, which is brilliant. And I think she was winding up some of the Man United fans fishing a bit, just having a laugh. And they were getting right wound up. And they're basically saying that we were cheating and we were just playing anti-football tactics. And I'm sitting thinking to myself, are they taking the piss? They weren't good at all. They were not good. They were kicking us off the pitch. They were breaking up play, Mark. They were putting in bad tackles. I mean, that one for Casemiro on fucking Fraser. He's lucky that wasn't another referee in that game. That was right over the top. The second challenge he got when he got a yellow card.
I think it goes a bit ragged, doesn't it? It wasn't. There was. I think there was a bit from both sides where they were. It was physical, wasn't it? It wasn't. But Newcastle showed that they weren't afraid. They've gone into games like that before where they've sort of cowed down to the opposition and showed them too much respect. Newcastle went there toe to toe this time round, and it was because you end up with the likes of Kashmir having to put tackles in them because actually they're being battled for once. They don't know how to cope with the fact that the team that they normally play against isn't doing what they're expecting them to do.
Yeah, they've got no plan B of the really. They're out of ideas.
Exactly. They have to kind of play like for like and go physical and do things like that where they've got to try and get an edge over the opposition somehow. And it's good to see another team having a that battle in them because you've seen Man U for so long just sort of wilt at any sort of pressure like that. So I think they missed them back to where them getting back to where they probably should be in that regard.
I think they missed Eriksen. I think Eriksen was a big miss for them. I think if he had played, that might have been a different story for us. Unless obviously Joe Litton volleyed them up in the air, quite as he often quite does as well. To be fair, but yeah, I'm sorry, I've got to get this one up. Jimmy is the king of the one-liners. I just missed it there. Jimmy is the king of the one-liners, and he's living up to his tag again there. Did Mark get his EB when Hull went down? Ouch, Jimmy. That's what Rod said when he that's what Rod said when he hit the floor. Let's see. My God. Absolutely. I'm going to have to borrow some of these, Jimmy. These are absolutely gold, mate. Absolutely gold. We've got Alan in the comments there saying, lads, what do you think about the Crow? What a lovely segue that is, Alan. Top man. The Klopp rant, just to have a laugh. He managed to club one of the six that tried to destroy English football forever. You're absolutely right. But just on the Klopp comments, Alan, I thought that was a man trying to deflect the fact that his team wasn't doing very well, that he's under pressure. He's lashing out at people. I think he's lashed out at journalists for no reason whatsoever. Me and Mark spoke about that before, I think. I think he's showing very little class in the way he's conducting himself. I've called him Jurgen Strop for ages, Mark, haven't I? And he's just been getting gradually worse and worse. And I think that comment about Newcastle was ridiculous, really, given how much money they spent. And he was talking about Haaland, Mark, wasn't he? About how can you compete with Manchester City? Haaland was 30 million quid less than fucking Darwin Núñez. Like, is somebody pissing in his fucking water bottle or what?
Because they could have quite easily afforded Erling Haaland. They really
of course
could.
They could have.
And they spent an extra 30 million on Darwin Núñez, who, he's looked okay, that don't get us wrong, but he's not exactly set the world alight. And yes, Manchester City can at times go out and buy exactly who they want to buy, but they played the sensible game with Haaland. He had a release clause, and that's not City's fault. They've paid what was the going rate for him, and they've got an absolute bargain. I mean, we talk about Bruno being a bargain and Trippier being a bargain. I'm sorry, but the best bargain in world football is Erling Haaland for 50 odd million.
Hands down. Absolutely.
So it's those comments are just ridiculous. And it is a man who is under pressure because his team haven't been performing, and he's not like the fact that yes, he may get a little bit left behind.
Oh,
he's
still a bit there, Mark. Yeah, he's still a bit there. Go on.
Give me 2 seconds. You keep talking.
I'll keep talking. Yeah, no, I can slag Jurgen Klopp off all day, mate. That's my favourite pastime. But yeah, it's just. I mean, I think if ever there's an advert for Jurgen Klopp to put his glasses back on, it's probably that, really, because he's not winning any friends at all here. Either. The way he's behaving, the way he goes on, and he's just a complete prick. And just to kind of compound that, really, this is what he did at the weekend. If people didn't see this, so he attacked the linesman it is an attack. That's what he did. He attacked the linesman as he was running up the sideline. He was right in his face, screaming, shouting the odds. I mean, that's the kind of thing you do in a pub when you've had too many beers and you want to start a fight on somebody. And he got a red card, and rightly so. I mean, the prick's been at it every week for God knows how many weeks now on end, and he gets away with it. His behaviour is disgraceful. He winds people up. He even managed to wind up our bench, I think. When we played them and they skanked that defeat after adding about 106 minutes on injury time. I think he wound up one of our bench members as well, and he got away with that as well. But he's become such an unlikable character, Jurgen Klopp. I totally agree with you there, Stu. He does deserve a multi-match ban. Mark, we were talking about this before we come on. I think the only way you sort people like Klopp out of the way he's behaving. It's to give him a massive ban, a massive touchline ban, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Did you show the image of him?
I did. I pulled up the image of him being a complete prick and shouting at the lines.
So just that is, yeah. Has the linesman made a mistake? Has the referee made a mistake? It did look like a foul, but it looked a lot of, that it was going the other way as well. So yes, you can be upset that the fact that the foul wasn't given, in your favour. But sorry, that's just not a reaction of a sane person. That's not the reaction of a Premier League manager, and that's such a dangerous precedent for others. Again, we come back to the way that the Man United players reacted. It just sets a dangerous precedent for the rest of the game, and it's just not. And it should result in a ban. I'm sorry, he should not get away with that. I know there was talk about there being precedent of, well, Conte got away with one earlier in the season. I'm sorry, no, that deserves a ban. That deserves a multiple game ban. I think, as Stu said in the comments there, it's just it's because it would just let him get away with it again and again, and something has to change with that.
Yeah, for me, completely. I agree with that. I mean, it's the only way you kind of stamp it out, really. But I mean, it's looking at some of the comments there. BT's just pulling up there that Manchester City had that goal from Phil Foden ruled out, and Pep was talking about 3 coins totaling £2.50 in there. Pep said next time they will do better, which I think is great by Pep, just to show a bit of humour in that. But I mean, I think the problem is with Jurgen Klopp again. He's become so self-entitled that he thinks. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. When he first come over, he was so charismatic and likable, and he kind of had that charm about him that got him out of things. He could say things, he could do things, he could carry on. But like everything else, success breeds arrogance. You've got to have humility to keep yourself grounded. And Jurgen Klopp hasn't done that. He's allowed himself to become more and more arrogant. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure Pep's arrogant as well, but Pep does it with a calmness and a coolness that he doesn't have to show that side. Whereas Klopp's certainly rattled this season. I mean, let's be honest, we're sitting top 6 at the minute. Jurgen Klopp's team is behind us at the minute. That's why he's getting wound up about Newcastle, because he knows how lucky they were to beat Newcastle United. He knows that, and in his heart of hearts, he knows he's not getting the best out of the players that are there. He knows that they're not the same since Mane's gone, Mark. He knows Salah's been off his game. He knows that Núñez hasn't hit the ground running. So, listen, football's a fickle game, Mark, isn't it? You can go from being the messiah to the villain overnight if things don't work out for you. And I think Klopp is feeling the pressure, mate. I mean, that win at the weekend will do him the world of good, but, the Scousers they'll be full of their own shit for weeks on end, won't they, really, mate, until somebody else beats them.
I mean, in fact, they've had a decent week, haven't they? 7 against Rangers.
Fucking hell, we could score 4 against Rangers, mate. That's good, mate.
I think, unfortunately, that seems to have played Salah into form, hasn't it? So, because he looked much better against City. So, but you're right. Klopp it is a man under pressure. Yes, they've lost a few due to injury, but this team aren't performing the way that they should be. They were much better against City. I mean, I'm still not convinced that the Haaland foul is a foul. For the City goal getting disallowed, so they've got one there. I loved him at first. Let's go back to talk about the way he was. I loved him when he came to the league. A lot like Mourinho, he was a breath of fresh air. He's just a miserable, moaning. I can't think of a word right now, but
Turkish teeth having bastard. There you go, mate. I'll help you out. I'll help you finish that.
I'll go with that. But do you know what it is? We'll say it again. Something's got to kick in with him, because he's going to keep doing it. And the more and more he reacts like this, it's just being accepted by the Premier League and the FA, and it has to. It's
like Ash was saying there. It's hard to understand his interviews. He's with his ego and inflation, he mumbles and streams of shite. I mean, that way he attacked the journalist, and when the guy mentioned. Was it Dietmar Hamann, I think he mentioned, and he was going, oh yeah, you talking about that. I mean, this is why I probably couldn't be a journalist in that room, because I would just say to him, well, I'm only saying what he said. What's your problem? You know what I mean? I remember when Craig Hope had that big blow up with Steve Bruce, and he was like shouting at Craig Hope, and Craig Hope, I gave it back to him. He just said, he said, he called me a liar. And he said, well, no, Steve, what are you talking about? And I think Steve McLaren had a similar thing with Craig Hope, because he obviously doesn't take the shit. Fair play to Craig Hope. But I mean, these journalists are just asking simple questions here. Jurgen Klopp isn't so big that he's not, he's not protected from questions by the journalists. It's their jobs to ask you questions. If your team's struggling, your team isn't playing the way you want to play, it's their job to ask you the tough questions, and you got to answer them, mate. That's it. End subject, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about his press conference and stuff. Look, remember his comment to, was it Ashley Priest from the Birmingham Mail? About
I can't understand what you're saying.
Honest to God, man, it's just, and this is that level of arrogance. I don't mind arrogance when it's used in the right way. Absolutely, you've got to be arrogant to be in that profession. But there's a way to do it, and he's just gone about it the wrong way. And I think, as Alan said there, it's pressure. He's cracking. It's really the first time. It's really the first time he's been put under any serious pressure, and he's not handled it at all well.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, KK did it, didn't he? KK had it. When we were going for the title, he cracked under the pressure when Ferguson was mind gaming him. Obviously, Wenger didn't crack. Jose was kind of unfallible as well in his early years at Chelsea. But Klopp's got to that stage now where I think he's struggling a bit. He's probably frustrated at the lack of finances, in terms of, say, finances. He signed Nunes and everything, but he's had to go for people like Carvalho and guys like that. He's had to go for younger players. And, he's probably a little bit frustrated that he sees people like Newcastle getting money, Eddie Howe signing Isak, Botman, Bruno, and he's thinking, fucking hell, I would have had all three of them. You know what I mean? What's going on here? So he is probably wound up. And I agree with BT. Maybe he should go on an anger management course. But listen, we're not going to spend any more time talking about that whingy face, Turkish teeth bastard. Let's talk about something good, mate. And we're going to talk about the defenders of the earth. So if people didn't know already, Newcastle United now officially have the best defensive record in the Premier League. Do you remember, Mark, when people said the problem is, there we go, look at that. There's a flashback there for anybody who was born in the 80s. Do you remember when they said Eddie Howe couldn't organise a defence?
He's not a defensive coach. No,
he's not a defensive coach.
He'll never be able to organise a defence. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've conceded 9. It is the best in the league. They are now, I think there's, Chelsea, Spurs, Arsenal, and City are the four teams that have conceded 10. I mean, even if you look at their XG against, I think it's 13.5 or something like that. So they're performing better. They're conceding less than their XG suggests that they should be. That may change the stat a little bit as it goes on. You tend not to find that you perform that well against your XG in that regard, but they're doing well. They're blocking shots. They're creating disruption for strikers and midfielders trying to get into the box and stuff. So they're doing everything right in that regard. And obviously with Nick Pope, I think a lot of that XG comes from the Brighton game, when Nick Pope was absolutely outstanding. So, it's when you've got a good goalkeeper behind you, it makes the defence better. And you bring in a player of the calibre of Botman as well, everybody just looks so much better. I just pick up on a couple of stats for the two of them from the weekend. Botman's stats: 83% passing, but defensively, no ground duels, but he won 2 of 2 aerial duels, 3 clearances, 2 blocks, and an interception. Fabian Shaw alongside him, 91%.
He was immense. Shaw was immense. He was as well, mate.
Fantastic.
£3.5 million, that kid was, mate. If people don't remember that.
And very nearly left the club, or was heading for the exit.
Exactly. If it was anything to do with Bruce, he would have been gone, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah. And for him, it was he won his only ground duel, 2 of 4 aerial duels, 7 clearances, 2 blocks. And I said 91% passing. It was just those two were brilliant. I think Trippier had a good game. It wasn't potentially his best, but I think he was kept a little bit deeper than normal. I'm not sure Dan Burn had a particularly fun game at the weekend.
I was surprised at that
relatively
decision.
early, didn't he?
I'm surprised at that inclusion. Yeah, I mean, we've done a rumour has it video recently, which is going to come out in the next couple of days, guys. So check that out on some left backs being linked. I'm not sure if something's up with Target, mate. It just he seems to be in and out, doesn't he? I know he's had little niggly injuries and being ill and stuff, but how you can pick Burn to play in that game over Matty Target is beyond me. Just before you answer, Mark, that's a great comment, by the way, by Alan. Remember, lads, since it was a kid, strikers win your games, defenders win your titles. That's totally right, mate. Totally right. Well said.
It's the same adage in the NFL. Offense wins your games, defense wins your championships.
100%.
It works everywhere. You
100%.
cannot. Yes, you've got to score goals to win games, but over the long haul, you have to keep the goals out the other end as well, long term. Newcastle are doing it right at the moment, and we looked at their stats last week. Then they were in the top sort of 10 for pretty much every stat going. They were or there or thereabouts, and the key ones were keeping the ball out of the back of the net. That XGA is very, very good. I think they're sitting around sort of mid-table. It's not great, but it's not poor by any stretch of the imagination. But it's actually the goals conceded, and when you are the least leakiest defence, is that a phrase?
Imagine saying that after 3 pints. Say that after 3 or 4 pints, the least leakiest defence. Jesus Christ. Probably come out the list. It says this. I don't know.
But at the same time, Newcastle scoring goals again. So you're getting it in both directions now. So,
what's your take on Target then, mate? Do you think something's up here with Target, left back? Why is Burn getting in ahead of him in a game like that?
I think it might be a case of not wanting to change a winning side. You've come off the back of 2 really good wins, and not wanting to disrupt it. But the other part of me thinks that Target can be very good.
Yeah.
There were times over his career when he does get caught out of position, and against somebody like Anthony with the blistering pace that he has, was that an issue? And I know Burn doesn't have particularly great pace, but he's got a very good positional sense. And I just think that was the thinking, that you have Target in backup if he's needed, but you want that defensive soundness of Burn being there just for his overall stability in that position and in his calm and positional sense.
Yeah, I think maybe Ash has got a point there with that comment. It's not that there's anything wrong with Target. He just needs to, he just doesn't want to drop Burn really. But I think we might see Burn come in against Everton. We'll be doing a match preview for that as well coming up on the channel. But I could see maybe Shaw getting a rest after that game of the weekend because he was through the wars a bit. And obviously you've got a few games close together here. So I think Shaw might even get a rest against Everton at St James's Park on Wednesday. I could see maybe Botman and Burn being at centre-half with Target coming in at left-back. I agree with Stu. I think Target needs a run of games to get up to speed. I think when you looked at him last season, he was playing consistently, and he was. I think he lacks going forward. I think you've all said that, Mark. He lacks going forward. He lacks putting balls in the box like Trippier on the opposite side. But listen, you're not going to get a Kieran Trippier, are you, with a left foot? Jesus Christ, if you could get that, you'd be laughing your head off. You wouldn't get that for 12 million quid. But Target's more of a defensive-minded player. But when you've got Maximin out there, you have to be defensive-minded. If you have an attacking fullback on the left-hand side as well as the right, and Maxi's there, we're going to get caught short, aren't we? Or going the other way. So
you do, but I still think that Target's best period came in his career, possibly. Yes, he was brilliant last season, but one of his best periods was playing in behind a maverick of a left winger in Jack Grealish. And he did overlap. He got into goal scoring and goal creating positions in that season. So he's got it in him. I just think because Maxi's such a different player, that he's not really allowed to be that sort of that forward driving fullback, because he has to be much more on his game at the back. He's not going to get any cover. Except when you see the likes of Joe Linton pull left, and we've said that before, where you see so many times Joe is very left-hand side defensively. You're not going to get that support from Maxi that other wingers will perhaps give you. So he has to stay a little bit further back.
It's a good question actually about Joe. To be fair, because we put the cat amongst the pigeon with a Twitter poll, didn't we, about Maxi as to whether
that was shocking. I can't believe you'd ever ask a question.
My God, how dare you ask a question as a fan base? But the question that we asked, I'm sure some of you guys in the comments voted, but the questions that we asked really was, is Maxi's injuries becoming a little bit too frequent and kind of disruptive to the harmony and the balance of the squad? And there's a time to look to maybe buy somebody in to potentially take that burden off him and make it that we don't rely on him so much, that we have other players, whether it be a Maddison at the RB or whatever. And we had the actual closing poll was, people said, yes, he's injury prone. You need to bring in some more cover. It was 55 to 45. It was a bit like a Brexit vote, Mark, wasn't it? 55 to 45. But some of the bedwetting comments that we had on this post was unbelievable. I mean, this generation of FIFA players that, go like absolutely shit in their pants, out of pure rage when you dare question a player is just unbelievable, man. It's incredible.
I don't even think we questioned the player, though. The wording, could you argue that the wording could have been better? I don't know, but let's look at the comments back where, how can you call him injury prone? He played 35 games last season. Yes, that's fine, but is that a one-off? Because the season before he missed 18 games. The season
niggly injuries.
If he misses the 3 games now, so the Manchester United game, you've got Everton and Spurs.
Yeah.
If he misses those 3, that's then 8 games this season that he'll have missed. So already on the back of that, you're already looking at that's 30, 20, so 38 games missed. So it's a full season of games missed in 3.5 seasons.
Yeah.
Is that what you want? I mean, we all acknowledge that Callum Wilson is injury prone.
He's shown that he's made a glass. Yeah.
Have it obviously in the comments, the stat between, or the comparison between Maxi over that period of 3 and a bit years and Callum Wilson over that same period. Which one do you think has more games missed?
Oh, do you know what? I'm going to say Maxi.
It will be. At the end of this period, Maxi will have missed 1 more game, I think it is, than Callum Wilson, because I think it worked out that pre-Man U, I think it was 38 to 41 or something like that. So it's either equal or it's going to be 1 more. So for a player who's not injury prone to have missed the same number of games that Callum Wilson, who is acknowledged as being injury prone, what other conclusion do you come to? We don't want him to be injured. Everybody wants to see a fit Saint-Maximin on the pitch and playing at his best, because he's an absolute breath of fresh air on that field. He's like I say, he's a maverick. He does what he wants.
Yeah.
But he's not reliable in that regard. And yes, last season he did play 35 league games, but is that a one-off?
I'm starting to think you might be right with that. Maybe Stu's saying that we're not going to see ASM or Isak before the World Cup. I mean, for me, we've talked about this before. I honestly do think that come January, and this is a bold claim, but I think Newcastle United come January will be in and about the European places. I really do believe that. From what I've seen so far this season and the way we've played against the teams we've played, I would be shocked if we're not in and amongst it for European places, be it 7th, 6th, whatever. And I think the owners will put their hand in their pocket, and I think they'll buy some big players. I think Maddison is definitely on the cards. I think they wouldn't be pursuing Maddison in January, is what we're led to believe, if he didn't want to come in the summer. And I honestly do think that deal will happen. And if you put James Maddison in that squad, that's your X factor player there. That's your guy that can pull something out of nothing. That's your guy you look to for that killer run, that killer pass, that killer goal, whatever it may be. Bruno's doing that for us as well. Of course, we love Bruno at bits. But if you get a Maddison in, or you get a Diaby in, or if you get both in, right? For me, I think Maxi's days are numbered. I mean, to coin a phrase of saying there, before COVID, was a massive chunk.
COVID was a massive chunk, and I accept that.
Was a massive chunk, yeah.
I think it was a chunk of about 10 games or something you missed. So I do accept that. But that doesn't take away from the overall that the rest of it is that there's a lot of muscular injuries. Yes, there are impact injuries in that as well. but he's the type of player that he's going to pick up those knocks. And I did see some comments saying, he's just unlucky. When does it stop being unlucky? And when does it start becoming a problem? And this is the point. When does it start becoming a problem for the team? Because you can't rely on him being available for more than.
Or do you save him for the big games? Do you save him for those massive games? Your Cities, your Man United, your Arsenals, and you rotate the squad. I mean, Murphy's doing all right at the minute, but that won't last forever. Just a point there. Jimmy loves the way you put that across. Top man, Jimmy. Thanks for that, mate. We've got a comment from Wambala there. So got to be confused on Maxi. He's got more injury prone since Bruce left. I think that is Wambala. I think that's because he has to put more work in under Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe expects him to put more work in, off the ball, pressing. I don't think Bruce expected that of him. There was how many times, Mark, did we see him throwing his hands up in the air and whinging that the ball didn't come to him or he didn't get the right crossing or whatever. Whereas under Eddie Howe, he can't do that. He's got to run back and try to be part of the defense or the press. He's got to get on it, hasn't he, a bit more? And I think that's why he's getting so many muscle injuries, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a comment somebody brought up about him, in picking up a lot of injuries while Bruce was there. But it's there's an argument there. But it's a fair point because he has picked up a few since, and they've not kept him out. Let's be fair; he did play most of last season, but the way that it started, I get the type of player he's always going to be prone to stuff because it's that burst, isn't it? So muscular injury is always going to be an issue.
Pace players always have hamstring injuries, don't they? That's the curse.
And he's gonna take knocks. And again, he's that kind of player that draws people to him, and they're gonna foul him. So it is gonna happen. But it is an interesting point, and I think there's a lot of that because he maybe wasn't so fit to start with. That he's then finding out actually just what his body can do. Because he's now in a position where they're being trained so hard that he has to be fit all the time. So those little bits that he could possibly once have got away with as well, because it was a little bit more leisurely, we'll call it, the training regime. He's finding out now what is possible for him. So be interesting to see how that goes. I say I want him fit, and I like watching him play because
of course we do.
He's fantastic.
I think even the neutrals want him fit because he's just phenomenal when he's fit and he's flying, mate. I mean, Stu's got a good comment there. If only Gucci made hamstrings. Absolutely, Stu. That'd be everybody. So just, I suppose...
I'm amazed he hasn't tried to just wrap himself up in more bandages, to be honest with you.
Maybe that he can get like a Gucci, get a kinesiology tape. He can just get that and wrap it around the back of his thighs, possibly. But Wobbler saying, could you compare the work rate Miggy with the pace to Maxi, though? Yeah, you're right. I think Miggy's very different. Wobbler, I think I've heard this on other podcasts as well. Miggy's built like a long distance sprinter or something. I think Miggy, we probably don't see the graft he puts in behind the scenes to get his body right for the way he plays. Miggy is just constant, Mark, isn't he? He's back and he's forth. He relies on that stamina, that fitness, that speed. He hasn't got the upper body strength. And I just think, for me, 100%. I think he's definitely looking after himself in that regard. Yeah, Mark's just banged in some of the comments there. So apparently betting has been suspended now on Steven Gerrard getting the heave-ho from the Villa. I remember once upon a time we wanted him at Newcastle, mate, didn't we? It's not quite worked out for Stevie G at the Villa, mate. And I think Poch is the latest name linked, isn't it?
I think there's Poch and a certain Mr. Emery. Good evening.
Good evening.
And good evening. And who's the other one? Tuchel as well was linked as well. So
Tuchel,
yeah,
I'm surprised if he takes a Villa job.
I can't see that happen at all. Apparently, the betting dropped from something like 5 to 4 to 1 to 10 for him to be the next manager to be sacked, and then they are now showing that that event is you're no longer able to bet on. So that
you could. Aston Villa always go back to a man who really looked after you back in the day if you really want to. Sorry, Villa fans. I could not resist that. I'll be getting hate messages on the Villa fans. But listen, let's not talk too much about the Villa. We'll go back to Newcastle.
No.
So there was a little bit of history made at the weekend. We love Nick Pope. We can just say the words Nick Pope and that's it. Thanks to Toon Poles, you can just say Nick Pope. But Nick Pope had his 50th clean sheet at the weekend in the Premier League, and only 4 more goalkeepers have kept more clean sheets than him since he made his Premier League debut in 2017. Mark, as the resident keeper of Evermore, just how immense is Nick Pope, mate?
I love him. Honestly,
Brilliant.
I always have. I genuinely think he's a brilliant goalkeeper, and he's almost a proper goalkeeper.
He is.
Can we properly dispel the myth that he's totally useless with his feet? He's not
He's
the greatest
with his feet, man.
He's not Edison, and he's not Alisson. That's fine. There aren't many keepers that are. But he's a better goalkeeper than Jordan Pickford by a country mile.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
He is I believe that he's a better goalkeeper than Aaron Ramsdale at the moment as well. Yes, he's made a couple of mistakes. He's a goalkeeper. Unfortunately, you make a mistake, it generally ends up in being a goal. But he is just a bloody brilliant goalkeeper, and it's to pick him up for as little as Newcastle paid for him. We were talking about bargains before. 10 million for a goalkeeper of Pope's quality is a sensational bit of business. And to everybody that questioned the decision to sign a goalkeeper when Dubravka was there, there's a little bit of humble pie needs to be eaten there, I think. I mean, I was banging the drum from minute one when it was linked. And he's not shown any reason to doubt the decision to bring him in and have him as number one, because he's just been brilliant.
Absolutely, and good shout to coin a phrase. The balls he was putting out wide, the Trippier were superb. He looks even more composed now, I think, than I've ever seen him before. But Mark made that point as well, even when he signed that. He was playing for Burnley under Sean Dyche, which was very much hoofball. He's had a chance to play.
Not exactly tick-tacker, is it?
No, exactly. More like shitty shatter. But he just, I think he is just going to be. I think he is going to go down as definitely one of our best goalkeepers. And I really hope that Nick Pope is between the sticks when we win a trophy or when we qualify for the Champions League or whatever it is. And you're right, Stu. He's got great upper body strength, and he's a unit as well. He really is. But I agree with Mark. I think he's definitely England's number one. And I'm buzzing that he'll be at the World Cup representing Newcastle United as well, which will be absolutely class. So just another couple of bits of news before we finish up, guys, because we're nearly up an hour. So we have made a signing. The ITKs must have been asleep by the way on this one, Mark. So Amadou Diallo.
It's funny. This is two signings that none of them have picked up on. How strange.
Never saw Garang Qual coming out, did they? But so Amadou Diallo has joined United's academy, Newcastle United's academy. 19 years old. He came from West Ham. They have high hopes from him. Very skillful looking winger, loads of pace, great movement. He's played up front a bit, but I think he predominantly plays on the left wing. He's represented England from under 15 to under 17s. He played in a trial game against Middlesbrough and looked quite good. And obviously they signed him up from that. So Diallo just said, firstly, he wants to thanks Newcastle United and the club for giving him the opportunity to become a Newcastle player. He's very delighted to be here. He's looking forward to playing and helping the team. From day one, the players and staff were good to me and helped me settle in quickly. So that made everything else easier. I'm really looking forward to getting started and help the team work hard to achieve our goals as a team this season. So I think he's going to be in the under-21 squad, really, Mark. But if he stars, if he shines a bit, he might get some cup game time. You never know. Eddie Howe will be keeping an eye on him, I'm sure.
Definitely, if you look at it, kind of again, if you look at the injury situation, if one or two do pick up injuries, that a player like that plays on the wing will potentially then get some time in the squad as well. So I think it's a sign until the end of the season, isn't it? But I guess because of his age, you then look at beyond then to see just what an impact he can have. And it's another one of a kind of a Dan Ashworth style signing where he's young, he's talented, he's got a bit to prove.
Very Lampardy style, like he did with Lampardy at Chelsea. Yeah, very like that. Yeah, I
think definitely he's got a little bit to prove like there as well. So if he comes in and takes the opportunity now, he could flourish. So. And especially working with the players that are there, and again, if he's going to be under the tutelage of a certain Mr. Howe as well, that can only be a good thing for him.
Absolutely, mate. Hey, God, I tell you what, could have some serious width coming with him and Garang Kual in a few years, mate. Some serious pace coming on there. So it's very, very exciting. And also, we have strengthened the boardroom as well. We talked about this for a while. It's been linked for, I think, a few weeks now, Mark, hasn't it? But Peter Silverstone has finally been announced as the Chief Commercial Officer, CCO of Newcastle United. So we talked a little bit about Peter Silverstone. He spent 7 years at Arsenal. I think he left to go do one football. Very, very, savvy operator in terms of bringing commercial revenue to clubs. He was instrumental in the Adidas deal happening with Arsenal, the Visit Rwanda deal. Also, he was instrumental in the Amazon documentary being made, which is created a huge amount of revenue from now. Apparently, they still want to do that for Newcastle. I've got my reservations, but I think the club have said that they're happy to do it, but they don't want any kind of anti-Saudi rhetoric, kind of put within the documentary. But this is another good move for the club, Mark, isn't it? Because we need that revenue in. We did the episode with Kieran Maguire. Adam did a great podcast with him, and he said that's how Newcastle United grow, and that's how they start buying big players, by getting that commercial revenue going. This guy's surely going to bring that in, Mark, isn't he?
Yeah, look, I mean, you mentioned the Adidas deal before and stuff. Look at the kit sponsor, and I know this is one that we know is going to change, but Newcastle have got the lowest kit sponsorship deal in the Premier League. Is it 5 million that Funny it's paid for theirs?
Our sleeve sponsor is more than the shirt sponsor. That's disgraceful, man.
When you consider City's, I think their deal is something like 67 million for their shirt sponsor. I think that you look at Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea are rolling around the 40 million mark or something like that. Look at that. That's such a huge difference in terms of the amount of commercial revenue that those clubs are bringing in. And that has to be the next step in Newcastle's, change of direction is to start bringing in those big bucks, big kit manufacturer, big kit sponsor, potentially a ground sponsor as well, so long as it's done in the right way. And this is all money that you can then plow into the transfer market, because that just opens up so many more doors and alleviates some of those FFP issues.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, actually, just to finish on that quickly, mate, just as you mentioned it. So one of the things that's kind of resurfaced a little bit is the name and rights for St James's Park. Now, it's an interesting one. That's just briefly. I might set too many comments off going. I might overrun. But the name and rights of St James's Park is obviously quite a delicate subject. We weren't happy when Ashley did it. We kicked off about it. But I think it was the way Ashley did it, the arrogance of it, and just the way that he just did it without any consultation. Darren Neils was on BBC Newcastle, and he made it clear that it's going to be supporter, communication about this kind of a thing before anything like that happens. What's your take, just briefly, mate, on the naming rights at St James's Park? Do you think it's less of an issue now because the team's doing well and the Cats joined the equation there, everybody there? So as you can see, we're overrunning. So the Cats up telling Mark off. What do you think, mate? Do you think the naming rights is as big of an issue as it used to be, or do you think that can really happen and move on? So.
No, I think Ashley did it the wrong way.
It doesn't look like you got a ponytail there. To be fair, that was hilarious.
Honestly, Ashley did it the wrong way, and it was all for him. It was nothing about commercial revenue for the club. It was all about brand brand image for his own brand. It was naught to do with the club. The owners this time around have said, look, this is an option we're looking at. For something, and you look at some of the other clubs that they're all sort of heading in that direction. And look, it's always going to be St James's Park unless they move. Let's face it. But if you can bring in a deal worth 200 million, and that 200 million is going to go into the club to be used for wages and infrastructure and players, is there any harm in it be called something like the Aramco Arena at St James's Park?
At St James's
Does that
Park,
break anything?
I don't think so.
I don't think it does. No. But this is done with the backing of the fans. This isn't done just on a whim. This isn't done because the owners say, yes, it's the best thing. This has to be done with fan consultation. And the fans are the lifeblood of the club. They're going to be there forever. whatever generation, it moves on. They're always going to be there. So it has to be right. And the fans, I get now, I think in the majority from what I've seen, are relatively happy with that sort of, that sort of direction and going, yes, as long as we benefit from this, is it a bad thing? I can't see it being a bad thing at all. And so long as it's done in the right way.
No, I find it hard to disagree, man. But I'm sure we'll come back to that and revisit it as that gets more serious and serious. But that's all wrapped up for this week, guys. Thank you so much to everybody in the comments. It really helps the channel flow, as always. And as I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, click the like and subscribe button. Somebody has. Thank you very much tonight. We're on 1899. One more. I keep refreshing that. You can probably see the glow of my glasses. I keep refreshing it because we want that 1900, guys. Come on, give that 1900. But as I said, we're not going to be doing Evermore on Wednesday this week. We're going to do it on Thursday, so make sure you tune in at 7 p.m. live on a Thursday. We'll be talking about, obviously, the Everton game as well as the Manchester United game. I'm probably going to be back with a pre-match preview as well, so make sure you check it out. And we'll have a Rumour Has It video coming up as well, guys. So as we said, keep it Evermore, all free content. We love doing this. So this is us wrapping up. Me and Mark going to say cheerio, get yourselves to bed, and we'll catch you next time with Evermore.
See you guys. Take care.
See you later. Bye-bye.